You know, some things that pop up in our culture, our society here, you got to ignore, and they just kind of go away on their own. And then other things you absolutely can't ignore because they wind up being a terror attack in Boulder, Colorado. Huh? What the hell is he talking about? Well, yeah, absolutely, in both of those cases. First thing is, and of course we're going to talk about Boulder, but I can't lead off with that today, guys, because I'm going to start yelling, and nobody wants to hear about that. It's Monday. We're all hungover from the weekend. But we'll get to it, what causes that kind of thing. But also, in the case of ignoring something, is Pride Month just kind of like fading away? I mean, not completely, but maybe, just maybe, if you happen to not be in favor of that kind of thing, maybe instead of getting all outraged by it, in a case like that, the best thing to do is to just kind of like ignore it, because it is a call for attention. Maybe. That we're going to talk about as well. What's going on in California? This is going to be the pushback of transgender athletes taking spots away from girls' sports because they flat out ignored a federal order. But the parents, and that's starting slow, but the parents aren't putting up with it. We'll talk about that as well. All right, thanks for finding me. I appreciate it so much. The Wicked Radio live stream, all part of Wicked Wisdom with Bill Adams, all the social media channels. First, before we get into anything, I hope you had an awesome, great, safe weekend and enjoying it. And thanks for following along. I appreciate that so much. A lot more eyeballs on the live stream these days for whatever reason. So follow and share like the banner says right there, and I appreciate you. You got a friend in me forever, and the audio podcast will be right there, right as soon as we get off the live stream here, and I'll post that right away. All right. Details about Boulder coming up, but I got to talk about this because I had to check it for myself to see if it was actually true. I had heard, actually a friend of mine said just like last year, some of the retail stores, I can't find any of the Pride stuff. Now, he wasn't looking for it. He was just saying, it's interesting how they're following up with this because we thought it was going to kind of like, that would fade away. Because last year, if you remember, when the pushback happened against Pride, Target store was the first to remove it almost immediately when they realized that their profits were going downhill. So I had to check it out myself. I didn't really need to go to Target. You know how Target works. It's like you can't get out of there without spending $100. But I kind of perused and I looked around. They said, well, we're into Pride Month now. I wonder if they did it. I wonder if they stuck true to their new business model and they took that stuff down and they replaced it with a lot of like all-American summer kind of stuff. Lo and behold, I don't know about your local Target, and that's just one retail store, but mine did. I couldn't find that stuff anywhere. Again, I wasn't looking for it. Social media, and again, this is just one lady on Instagram, I think it was. Just one example, but she found the same thing. But this particular lady was very upset about not being able to find all her rainbow stuff at her local Target. And listen to what she says about it.
Happy Pride Month. In my Target that used to have the Pride section, it's now all USA.
Oh.
Yay.
Oh.
It's an American summer. Except for tourism, because tourism's down because no one wants to come here. USA, woo!
She's actually upset about it. And there you go. And there's your problem. She's more upset that there's a bunch of all-American summer type gear, mostly in that front section of her local Target, like I saw at mine. I guess they're all the same. Than the Pride stuff. And she's upset about this. Oh, well. But that's the way it goes because that's the way the market decides. And it took a long time with this, but it's really starting. I don't know about the other retail stores, but that's for sure. Different story, though. It seems like the retailers and corporations, I did look for this actively. I looked to see which major brands did or did not change their logo to the rainbow thing because that was going on for a good solid 10 years. Didn't see any of that. You know what I did see, though? I think the last on the bandwagon to wake up that people are kind of like done with this were sports teams. Oh, my God, over the weekend, sports teams all over the place. Just the Pride thing, and they did change logos, and wow. I didn't expect that. I thought sports teams from all different leagues, NHL, NBA, baseball, I thought they would be, maybe the first to drop this stuff. No, apparently not, but there we are. So maybe the takeaway there is, instead of getting all outraged and protesting, maybe you just kind of like turn a blind eye to that. It just goes away eventually, maybe. Or the market decided. Who the heck knows? Now, here's an example, the polar opposite, how you can't ignore things, and because it leads to, terror attacks on American soil. And I mean that. And I truly mean that. So all the calls, all the graduation ceremonies and the commencement addresses and the speakers, just like we had at MIT on Friday. Did you see that? The MIT class president hijacked the commencement address, the speech, and she made it all about Hamas are hero. Really said it. Hamas are heroes and free Palestine. Well, that goes somewhere. All of that shit rolls downhill eventually. And what do you have? Normalizing hatred against Jews. It's not only that, because this story in Boulder, Colorado has already been twisted to say it was just, it's another Jewish issue. No. Look a little deeper. Look a little deeper at this horrific event, what happened, and some of the video from out there. They were carrying American flags because they're American citizens as well as Israeli flags. Jews, but American Jews. So don't let them twist this any other way than this was an attack against American citizens in Boulder, Colorado. And what were they doing? They were calling for a pre-planned, scheduled, permitted event in that city, calling for the release of the remaining hostages. That was their ultimate crime. So what happens? Well, they got attacked. Here's what it sounded like. This horror.
He's right there. He's throwing Molotov cocktails right there.
Get both of them.
Okay. Got to go to the FBI on this one. It's key that the FBI made the initial statement and not Boulder police. And there's a discrepancy there between the two of them, which is just unbelievably ridiculous. Here's the FBI wrap up, a good description of exactly what happened. And we'll get to this terror suspect here in just a second. Here's the FBI statement.
I'm able to confirm there are 6 victims, ages 67 to 88. All of them have been transported to local hospitals. This attack happened at a regularly scheduled weekly peaceful event. Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd.
Really?
The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack.
Gee, you don't say. You mean free Palestine and this from the river to the sea bullshit that was allowed to be said on college campuses and locking Jewish kids? You know, I'd say Jewish, but that's not the first identifying factor. American kids who happen to be Jewish out of their classes and the violence against them and all those nice characters ripping down the posters of American hostages, because they were so horrified by the fact that we might want to get them home. You mean all of that? You mean all of that might have led to a terror attack, which is what this is, on American soil in Boulder, Colorado over a weekend? Yes. That's exactly what I'm saying. Because it was all allowed. Oh, they're just protests. They're just kids protesting. Really? Are they? Because what it did, and now we have a whole different situation on our hands. Now it's resulted in a terror attack, which is rightly so identified by the FBI right there. Now the suspect, he got into it a little bit there, but it was determined probably an hour after the FBI statement there about what this fine, upstanding individual is all about. So this one and now it's been confirmed. Bill Malugan, he's one of the reporters for Fox. He had it first, so he gets credit for the story. He dug in right away about the background of this guy. Good work out of him. And he says, and I quote, 3 senior DHS sources tell Fox News and him the Boulder terror suspect, an Egyptian national in the U.S., what's coming? What's illegally? As a visa overstay. Remember that? Remember we were all told the past 4 years? It's like, no, they're just here temporarily. Who entered the U.S. during the Biden administration. Mohammed Sabri Soleiman. It's the last time we'll mention this dirtbag's name, by the way. Arrived at LAX. And they even have the date. August 27th, 2022. August 27th, 2022. On a B1, B2 non-immigrant visa. Authorized stay through. He was supposed to leave in February of 23. But guess what happened, guys? He didn't leave. Because apparently he loves it so much, right? In 2020, he filed some sort of claim with the government, potentially on asylum claim. And he was given work authorization, which expired in March on 25. Wasn't supposed to be here. Doesn't like our culture. Doesn't like our country. Obviously hates Jews. Is pro-Palestine. And he's here. How many more of him? I know this is a horrifying question. I'm sorry. How many more like that are here? Because we got a major problem on our hands right now. Major problem. And I'll say it again. This actually happened too. Watch some more of the videos of this incident and what happened. There's one clip, I didn't have it here for you, but there was one clip of some fat fool after it already happened. Some people are on fire, okay, at the Molotov cocktails. This guy walking by runs up to one of the Jewish protesters and says, "You caused this. You caused all this," and then walks away. That's the problem. That's the sentiment that's been allowed to exist about this. It's their fault somehow that they did this. It's their fault. Now, you asked the question, I'm sure that I did too. And don't feel bad about asking this question because it is the right question to ask when you're talking about a terror attack. No other circumstance, really, because we don't want to advocate for violence unless it comes to something like this, right? Here's my question. And tell me you didn't ask this very same question. He's there stomping around before and after with the incendiary devices, right? He's got his shirt off, he's clear. Big target. Why didn't somebody, even before the cops get there, why didn't somebody put several bullets center mass right in the middle of this guy? Why? Why didn't that happen? Its situation was certainly called for it. Well, let's remember where it happened. Boulder, Colorado. And there's a picture, and on the Twitter account, just for the tease for the live stream coming up in the story, there's a picture of it that sums it up perfectly what the problem is here. So there's him, and he's got the thing, and he's shouting, and he's in front of a Boulder, Colorado public building with a giant pride flag. So there's the priority there. In a city that is a gun-free zone, right? So none of these citizens, they would have been arrested if they had any kind of firearm on them. That's why no. So all they were left to do was to yell at the guy before the cops came. That was it. That's all they could do was yell. It was the perfect synopsis. It was the perfect example of everything that was wrong here. Everything. And how this thing is allowed to happen. Ask yourself this question. Why was he in Boulder, Colorado? Let me see. Oh, sanctuary city. So they couldn't throw him out of there. And of course he knew that. Of course he did. Let's talk a little bit more about Boulder. Now, you just heard the FBI say right there and identify it right away as a terror attack and investigating as a terror attack. Good for them. Didn't waste any time doing it. Didn't pitter patter around. They called it exactly what it was and they identified the suspect. Well, compare that to immediately after the Boulder City Police Chief doing his press conference. What's the difference here?
You're already calling it a targeted terror attack. Mm-hmm. Would you also refer to it as a terror attack?
So I've been in contact with our local FBI multiple times. We are in contact with them here. We are not calling it a terror attack at this point. Again, it's way too early to speculate motive. I know there's a lot out there on social media, but
he's yelling "Free Palestine," throwing Molotov cocktails and another incendiary device, and you don't know what the motive is. You can't, these days of just ignoring who the city officials are wherever you live, and I hope you don't live in a situation like that. In beautiful Boulder, Colorado, you've got a police chief, and I wish, this is one of those days I wish this was more of a video concept instead of just audio. He's up there, he's kind of fiddling his hands, and it's too early. He's so afraid. He's just completely lost doing his press conference. He had to say something, but he's afraid of saying the wrong thing. And what does he come out with? Well, it's too early to call it a terror attack, and we don't know what the motive is. My God. So pay attention to not only what's going on in your local city and your local county and where you are. If it's a sanctuary city, trouble's coming. If it's led by people like that, where that's the priority, you've got trouble and you can't defend yourself. And this guy was allowed to do this in a gun-free sanctuary city zone because none of the citizens were allowed to arm themselves and stop this guy before the cops even got there. And again, it's never good to advocate violence. But this is a different story. We're talking about a terror attack on American citizens. It's a valid question, and I'll say it again. We all asked it, if you're honest with yourself. Why was he not shot by somebody as he was throwing Molotov cocktails and setting people on fire? Because they would have been arrested in this city. It's a gun-free zone, sanctuary city. They would have been the ones in jail by a police chief like that. That's why. So there's another takeaway. If you're going to stand up for what you believe in, and again, permitted, scheduled, regularly scheduled event, don't do it where you're going to be seen as the bad guy because you're just a sitting duck, for sure. And the second thing is, once this started, did anybody think it was going to stop? Once we saw American kids locked out of their classrooms at Ivy League schools and other colleges, and things thrown at them, and locked into buildings, did anybody think it was going to stop there? Did you really think so? And then you had public speakers, and the rock stars on stage, and there was another one. Did you see that over the weekend? Juxtapose this event with Imagine Dragons, the entertainment band on stage in Europe, waving a Palestinian flag over the weekend. All of this shit rolls downhill and normalizes what you have in a terror attack on American citizens. And don't forget that either, because they're going to try to twist this into just Jewish people. They were carrying American flags along with Israeli flags. This is an attack on Americans. Don't forget that, and don't let them twist it. And they've already started this with the headlines. Allegedly attacks protesters in Boulder, Colorado. They've already started to try to twist this story. That's what they've tried to do. Once this is something you can't ignore. None of us can ignore this anymore. This pro-Hamas, free Palestine bullshit. We've got a major problem on our hands now because we've normalized this crap in this country right now. Once you see it, say something and stop it. Not advocating violence, but once this started, year and a half, 2 years ago, of course it was going to roll downhill. And of course it was normalizing violence. Of course it was. But if you're going to protest against this, just be very aware. And here's the good take. Here's the one good thing. It'll wake us all up and pay attention to your local officials and what's going on in your local county or city or state. Because these people in Boulder had no chance. None. They can't arm themselves. They protected the criminal illegal alien who hates these folks, and they couldn't do anything about it. And you got a police chief who refuses to call it terror. Let this be the final straw where you're not going to tolerate this shit anymore. Let it be. This is the chance to be intolerant for this kind of stuff and not let it happen anymore. Because it is serious. Well, it was just a class president at MIT advocating for Hamas. Well, we'll just let it go. Don't let it go. Can't allow it anymore. Put the pressure on all of these public universities and public officials. Here's the other thing, too. I don't want to hear from a freaking politician, Democrat or Republican, that allowed this border to be open and didn't do anything about it. They're the problem. Then they're all going to send out their thoughts and prayers today. No, this guy shouldn't have been here, but he was here through a wide open border situation. Came through LAX, but still, same program. Let this be the final straw. This should be the end. This should be the end of it. Let this be the wake-up call. And if it's not, shame on us. That's the bottom. Speaking of waking up, well, California was interesting. So they had the federal. Now they're just ignoring orders from the feds to not allow the transgenders to compete. So they ignored that. They ignored it. And apparently a transgender athlete, and I'm sure there were lots of these over the course of the weekend throughout the entire country, won 2 state titles in the track and field competition over the weekend. And the statement from the athlete, by the way, was, he said, "Get over it." Okay. Now, slowly but surely, this is starting to happen, though. The pushback's starting to happen. It's going to take a long time because they're up against a wall here. So in Oregon, a little bit north of California, some female athletes lost out to another transgender in a different track and field competition, which is all happening now, and refused to step on the podium with that person, which is a good first step. Okay, it's a statement to make. Back to California for a second. There was a small but growing protest of mostly moms, and this is what it's going to take because moms get things done. Mostly moms protesting against this outside of the track and field events where the transgender person won the titles. Again, it's just starting, but the pushback is real. It's going to take a long time because they don't have a lot of support, sadly, from female athletes. But here you go.
They're trying to set a precedent. They're trying to push us aside like they always do to women. Please, women, sit down. You're second-rate citizens. We're not going back. We're not doing that anymore.
Martina Navratilova, remember the tennis star? Fought for a long time for women's sports. Bravely. That was good. That was really good. Spoke out against the Oregon athletes who refused to step on the podium and kind of, sort of supported them in a way, but wraps it up with a statement that said this. This is the quote from Martina Navratilova. "Feminists never wanted this, ever, any of it." Maybe. Okay. Here's what else you didn't do, Martina. You're not the only one. Where are all these superstar softball athletes? You know, the What's the girl that does the comment? Jessica Mendoza. She's one of them. She hasn't said anything. Jenny Finch. She's another one. Like she said anything. It's up to the Riley Gaines of the world and the brave female athletes to speak out. Again, a situation like the Free Palestine thing that you're allowed to percolate, you're allowed to grow and fester, and then when it's too late, you didn't do anything. The nerve of Martina Navratilova to say, we didn't want this. Maybe not, but you didn't do anything to stop it. We all asked for years, where are the female athletes that fought for equality in female sports, that fought for Title IX, that got it done? Where have they been? I'll tell you where they were. They were so afraid to speak out against the transgender movement. They were so petrified by it that nothing happened, and they allowed this to happen. And I don't think it's too late, but to crawl it back and to protect women and women's sports and their opportunities, it's going to take a long time. Now, it's starting with protests in California with those moms that you heard right there. But they got a long way to go. You've got an entire state that's ignoring the federal government that told them not to do this, and they did it anyway. And the transgender won 2 state titles in track and field. That's what you're up against. Because they're so afraid to step up for what's right and fighting. And this isn't a left-right thing. This isn't Democrat, Republican, blue, red, none of that shit. This is common sense versus lunacy. And you're letting the lunacy take over until you take a stand up against it. And I applaud those Oregon female athletes for not going to the podium. And the shame, you know what the shame of it's going to be? Like, remember the female fencer that refused to compete against the dude in her category? That's the shame. And I've seen the calls for women to just, step down, refuse to participate, take the loss. Well, that sucks that they have to take a loss, that they have to take the knee is for this thing to happen, to stand up. But maybe that's what it takes. But this can't be. You can't have it. I think it's going to be the moms of these female athletes that are going to finally get this done and refuse this nonsense anymore. By the way, I just saw this a couple of minutes ago, about a half hour ago. This was a story that popped up. Speaking of transgender athletes, it's going to be an interesting Olympics coming up next summer because Trump's not going to allow the transgenders. He's already talked about that. And also, remember last year, the female boxer that turned out to be a dude? If you had 2 working eyeballs, you could see it was a dude winning the gold. Well, that was confirmed genetically, apparently. That was a guy and is a guy. To no one's surprise. But they allowed it to happen. We'll see. All right, the takeaway. God, you just feel for those victims in Boulder, Colorado. But let this be the final straw. Let this be the one where you don't tolerate it anymore. And all of this stuff we should have known, all of this pro-terrorist bullshit is here now and it's on the streets. Don't advocate violence, but don't tolerate it. But if you're standing up against it, do it in a city that'll actually protect you, not a sanctuary city like Boulder, Colorado. All right, thanks for finding me. I appreciate it. I'm out of material. Have a Monday. I know it was a lot of dark news today, but the positive thing is you can always do something about it. Thanks for finding the Wicked Radio live stream. Follow and share, as the banner says right there, and you got a friend in me forever. Live stream podcast is going to be posted about 9 a.m. It's always on the socials as well. Appreciate your time, as always. Despite all that stuff, we're into June. How about that? Make it a wicked awesome Monday, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.